Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, or I should say good night area for some of us, whereas others of us are in the mornings or mid-afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. I'm Michael Hyson, Angelus son of Abaddon. I am a traditional Satanist and necromancer. Today, or I should say this night, I'd like to discuss Satanism on a more in-depth perspective and how it relates to its dealings with other traditions. First off, one of the major things that keeps coming up are these Illuminati wannabes, these idiots that are only out for popularity and fame. They're just looking for that quick fix, kind of like an addict looking for the next shot of or hit of heroin or some other form of drug. They're not interested in learning, they're not interested in evolving as an individual. Okay. And Bakel, Astarte Ishtar, Tintir. How you doing? My day was hectic. Today it was like a non-ending philosophy of individuals coming in for drinks, coffee, and other items at work today. So it was kind of hectic. But tonight, I kind of just came home and chilled out for a little bit before I decided to do this video. So, anyways, that's my perspective on in dealings with the Illuminati types because when they come, they're ignorant, they're arrogant, they don't want to learn. They don't want to evolve. They don't want to understand. Okay. When I first started the Order of the Black Thorn back in 2013, it was very interesting because a lot of these types came out of the woodwork wanting to learn, but yet at the same time, they were unwilling to learn. And I soon discovered that there was a pattern to it. And most of these individuals were from either the Malawi area or region of Africa or that of Ethiopia, okay, Congo region. And these areas are very almost dirt poor, I guess you could say, not really thriving as a culture or civilization. And that's really not their fault. It's mostly because they're in the middle of a war torn country. So, as I've said before, so I mean, it's really not surprising that education is not something that they pick up on easily or be willing to understand what education actually is. But still, it's there. And correct. It is more viral. It is more out in the populace nowadays due to videos like these. People who are actually putting the knowledge out there and giving references and sources of books and practices. People that are teaching what they know and what they've experienced. It really does help. Now, when these people first came to me, it was I want to sell my soul to Satan, and it's like, what makes you think that Satan wants your soul? Well, how do I just want to make a pact with Satan so that I could become rich and famous. And it's like, okay, are you looking for the wealth of the soul or knowledge? And it's like, no, they just want to become part of the Illuminati, become rich and famous, and that's it. They don't think further than that. Okay. So when I set them straight about Satanism and the different traditions of Satanism, from Luciferianism to traditional to theistic to agnostic to demonolators, okay, to the satanic vampire, all right, church, all right. So then it comes, well, how do I become one with Satan so that I can become part of the Illuminati? It's like, what words are you not understanding? Satanism has nothing to do with the Illuminati. Two different groups. And second of all, the Illuminati is a Hollywood produced idea. And if they did exist, why would they go for someone like you? You see my point. Okay. And then they come back at you with the same old bullshit with a whole different set of lines. Well, how do I join Satanism, make a pact, just so I can become part of the Illuminati? Can't you hook me up with them? No. Block. That's the fastest way a Satanist will block you. Right there. I've gotten to the point, if you're from that region, I'll just simply block you right off the bat because I'm not going to deal with you. It has nothing to do with it has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with color of somebody's skin. It's not racism or anything. It's just that I'm tired of dealing with the stupidity, the unwillingness and arrogance of not wanting to learn or to evolve as an individual, populace, or species. Okay? This is why anyone from that region, I just simply flat out block. I have come across a couple that are actually learning for themselves. They literally went out and got the merchandise. They got all the altar equipment. They started practicing on their own. They actually branched out and did what they needed to do. A good friend of mine and her husband live over in Africa. Okay. These two individuals are known and very popular necromancers. Okay. They are considered, in my opinion, some of the greats. They're right up there in the top of their field, much like sorceress Cagliostro, the necromancer, who wrote the Blood Sorcery Bibles, Volume 1 and Volume 2. She's also written a couple other books that are associated with her foundation. So there are necromancers over in Africa. There are practitioners over there, including some of those who are into Wicca or Wiccan practices. Okay, my young blood that I took underneath my wing as my adoptive little sister, she lives over there. So there are individuals there that I do associate with. It's just that there's certain sections of that country that I literally just block. Ethiopia, Congo, and Malawi. And that's the reason why. I'm not going to put up with your bullshit. I'm not going to sit there and waste breath or my time to deal with your ass. Plain and simple. Now, outside of these regions, there are actually individuals who literally go out, like I said. And some of them have actually prospered in cities, the cities that are out that way. So, I mean, it's actually very good for them. Some of them want to get out. I get that. You know, it's like being here in the US. Some of us just want to get the fuck out, but and then you got people wanting to come in. And it's like, the grass isn't greener on the other side. So it's like, what's the point? So, anyways, getting into dealing with Wiccans, Wicca, and paganism. A lot of these organizations, these covens, and these groups, like on Facebook, they follow what is known as the threefold law of return, the whole karma thing. Now, a lot of them claim that they want to learn, but in reality, they really don't. They just want to stick to their watered down prototypes of, oh, this is what I was told. This is what I was learned. This is what I learned through being told. This is what I was guided to by my teachers. Really, did you go out and actually get a book, study, go out into the wilderness and actually look for this stuff, like herbalism? Who taught you how to do alchemy? No, don't tell me you don't do alchemy. You just go to a store and buy it. Someone else does it, somebody more experienced. And yeah, that's actually what a lot of these groups are. But a lot of the groups on Facebook that deal with witchcraft, deal with Wicca, Wiccan, and pagan practices, including neo-paganism. They have rules on their forums that clearly state certain things, like no nudity, no hate speech, no blocking admin, no bullying, and stuff like that. Okay. But when somebody comes in that challenges their authority, at least the admin's authority, okay, or somebody gets a hair across their ass, you have hate speech, bullying, and you get banned from their group, even though you put forth physical references, page, paragraph, book, title, everything, and you put that out there. They will literally block you because it is easier to stick their heads in a proverbial sandbox than to actually deal with truth. They want to believe a lie. And this is why when we get into the term warlock, a lot of them take it from a European base, which means oathbreaker or betrayer, which is Anglo-Saxon and Indo-European. Okay. But when you get into other traditions, other regions of the world, the term warlock is seen as a title. It is given to practitioners, specifically that of males who are in the craft. Okay. Now they call it Wicca, okay, which is the craft of the wise. So where's the wisdom in what these groups are doing? Where's the wisdom? The double V or the U going into the W, okay? This is European based knowledge of witchcraft. But yet, Wicca and Wiccan practices have nothing to do with witchcraft in general. It is more of a philosophy, much like feminism groups, or that of, say, for an example, AA meetings. That's all they are. There's no actual practices. Some of them sit in front of an altar, light a candle, some incense, do a little prayer, but that's it. To some god or goddess, such as Diana or Canunos. But most of them are only in it to make money. So they make herbs, they make oleums, they make sachets. They start pawning off things and make it into a business and not education. It is no longer about education. It is no longer about understanding, doing research, delving into the actual knowledge of the old ones, the wise, the mages and sages of times past. You look at, say, for an example, the knowledge of, say, Raymond Buckland compared to that of, say, oh, I don't know, let's go with Hans Holzer. Okay. Then go back. What was this was actually brought up to me earlier. And it's a good reference point here because when you get into, say, for an example, Raymond Buckland's work, or that of Raven Silverwolf's, or that of, say, Saunders, Alexandrian practices. And then you go back and you look at, say, Crowley's work, or that of, say, oh, I don't know, Levy. Okay. Go back into White, Edward Arthur White. You see a huge difference. It's like they lost their balls. Literally, they lost their balls. No one has the guts to call forth a spirit. No one has the guts to do blood sorcery within Wiccan and pagan rituals. Oh, just poke right here with a needle and 3 drops of blood. Really? Where's your skull? Where's the bones? What is the spirit? Where's the spiritual tools that those in the past lived and died for to maintain and practice, to protect? The answer is they don't have it. Modern day left hand practitioners do, such as occultists, black magicians, sorcerers, Satanists. Some of those black witches, like the Black Witch Coven, for an example. Sure, they're all women, but where's the guys? Oh, that's right. Most of these guys are associated with How to Become a Living God franchise, or that of, say, the duel, the male and female aspect of J.D. Temple and Miss Orly Stewart. Okay, perhaps Bill Duvendeck and that of Asenath Mason. Okay, now these are practitioners who have two different styles. Asenath Mason, her knowledge of Lucifer and the day star, the Luciferian practices, is unparalleled compared to, say, Michael W. Ford. Okay, but yet when you go to AJ's, um, I can't speak today, J.D. Temple, and say, for an example, that of Orly Stewart, theirs comes naturally. They let the energies flow, and it really shows in their rituals that they are literally opening up their chambers. They're opening themselves up to these spirits that they're working with. Okay, there's a reason why Orly Stewart deals with demonology. Look at S. Connolly, for an example. Not only is she an author and a publicist, but she's one of the leading demonologists in the world today. Just one of them. Okay? Very few have the guts and the balls to delve into magic on a serious level, such as blood sorcery, necromancy, geomancy, aeromancy, hydromancy, pyromancy, chiromancy, and spatulomancy. Okay? A lot of people will sit there and go, well, today we're going to do tarot card reading. Really? What was the former name of that? Most can't even tell you. Those who seriously understand tarot cards know that it used to be known as cartomancy. Look up the term cartomancy. Okay? It's like looking up the term and definition of necromancy and going back 500 years, going back 1,000 years. Number one, today, you're going to see it with an E, N-E. Go back 500 years, N-Y. Go back 1,000 years, No, scratch that. 500 years was an N-I. Go back 1,000 years, it was an N-Y. Nigromancy, meaning the practice of black magic. Okay? And then you get into the church, the JCI, and how they've influenced the world with their form of sorcery. And yes, I use the term sorcery. I do not condone them as a practice, namely because they cannot associate with anyone else outside their little subdivisions. Now, what do I mean by subdivisions? Yes, that's the one right there. Spatulamancy. It's the seventh of the number seven on the list of the forbidden arts. The first being necromancy. Okay. Now, when we look at how they've moved in, how they've introduced, they act like friends, they introduce their practices, and then they take over and try to control everything. When we look at modern day Wicca and Wiccan practices, get into paganism, neo paganism, even, you're seeing the exact same stuff, the same tactics. Do as we do or get out. You're shunned. Interesting how that goes. You question them, you get shunned. You dare to go looking outside of that coven, you get shunned and you get labeled a heretic. You get labeled a heretic, a monster, a devil worshiper. And that's what a lot of these groups do. They really have no knowledge of anything, which is why Satanism is one of them is referred to so colorfully as the feared religion. Now, a lot of people will say Satanism is not a religion, that it's a philosophy. Okay. Now, let's look at Satanism for a minute. Number one, Satanism in the United States is a protected religion. When we look at the First Amendment and what makes up a protected religion is three things. One, do you have a foundation? The COS, the Church of Satan, for example, the Satanic Temple, the Brotherhood of Satan, the Satanic Brotherhood, the Joy of Satan, Church of Leviathan, the Traditional Church of Satan. These are foundations. Okay? So, right there, that's one of them. That's one thing that makes up a protected religion. Let's look at number two. Do you have doctrine? Okay. Many of these groups have put out forums such as YouTube videos, such as a ministry. The Joy of Satan uses priestess. Oh, what was her name? It's been a while. It's been a few years since I've actually listened to it. I want to say it's not Maggie, but priestess. Yeah, I'll have to look that up later. But they do a lot of preaching on sex magic and demonolatry, and when you get underneath their site, there's a lot of different things from opening up your chakras to kundalini work to working with demonology, demons and angels, how to contact them through invocation and evocation. Okay. You go into the Brotherhood of Satan. They have a huge library, from what I understand. Okay. And this is just things that I've learned about them over the years. Okay. You get into the Traditional Church of Satan. Robert Fries actually put out a Bible called Satan's Bible. Okay. So right there, you have doctrine. You look at the Church of Satan. Okay. Now, these are people just being atheists in this group. Okay. So it used to be devil worship. Now it's just atheism. in general, but yet they utilize Satan's name. They go into, their little black mass, which is reverse, Catholicism, and they get into different things that involve blasphemy. But they've written numerous books. Anton Szandor LaVey's books were just off his essays. He wrote his Bible. He wrote his life story. He wrote a few books on how to utilize psychology, observation, and the art of seduction to understand the inner, the outer, and the core of an individual's nature, be it dominant or submissive. What kind of job would you get, be it male or female? Okay. What kind of car would you drive? Okay. That type of stuff. And it's revolved around a wheel or clock. Then you get into the latest book, The Companion to the Satanic Witch, by Dr. Robert, what was his last name? Johnson, I think. Very, very good book. And it was for the male counterpart called the Satanic Warlock. All right. Now, this is the art of knowledge, the art of seduction, psychology 101. Okay. But utilizing a persona, taking yourself out of your normal routine and putting yourself into a D&D type lifestyle, okay, live role playing. And the way he put it in the book was flat out, these are the types of personas that you can take on. The average Joe to the Prince Charming type. Okay, the well-dressed, those in a suit, those that are more comfortable type like jeans and a t-shirt, to say, for an example, playing the rich guy when you're actually dirt ass poor. But it comes down to applying yourself to that persona, that way of life. Okay. Now, I would actually recommend the Satanic Warlock to you and the Satanic Witch, because those two books right there, when it comes to psychology and understanding the the human nature, the personality, the traits, you won't find anything that comes close to these two. Okay? So I would recommend those to you. But again, you're seeing scripture. Okay? Doctrines. Therefore, number 2, there's two things right there that befall the First Amendment and then what makes up a religion. Now, number 3 is quite obvious. Having fellowship. Do you have a following? Do you have members? Okay. The answer is obviously yes. Look at how many atheistic Satanists are out there. Not only those from the COS, the JOS, the BOS, but also the TST. Okay. There's a huge following out there. Even those in the Luciferian satanic practices. Not only the Luciferian witchcraft, but the Luciferian practices in general. Okay? So, right there, 3 things. So, yes, Satanism is a protected religion in the United States of America. Okay? Now, what's interesting to note also is that every borough, district, and state has their own viewpoints of what makes up a religion, but basically they're based off the federal penal codes, going from the American Civil Liberties Union to that of the Department of Justice. So, and this actually goes all the way back to the 1700s. I think the last time it was actually updated was 2007, I think. Before that, it was like 1960 something, I think. And before that was like 18th century and then 17th century after that. But the United States Constitution is made up of various different laws, regulations, and traditions that protect religions and personalized religious acts. Okay. So again, here's Satanism. It is a protected religion. Now, what makes it a feared religion though? And that's something that a lot of people don't understand. Okay. When they look at it from a feared viewpoint, like a scared child being scared of the darkness, this is the reason because of the church, this JCI. Okay. They sit there and say, well, God is the only way, and you can't do it by yourself. Just by doing this, it's entrapment. Basically, it puts you at the church's literal and physical aid. Okay. I actually concur with you, and I'll get to that and explain why in just a few minutes. Because I do plan on talking about my personal experience with the JCI. Okay. Now, here's the thing. The JCI is a dominant religion because they have sheer numbers. Okay. They have the wealth and they have the power of the government in the legal system to back up their claims. Okay. By doing this, they've ensured their victory or the victory in their own mind in keeping you, the little man or woman, on your knees as a scared little child. Okay. Submissive. And this is what happens with the populace because it's gone out there throughout the legal penal codes, the legal laws. Okay. You look at the laws of the land. Okay. And you're going to see the JCI's influence in making them. Look at the 10 Commandments. Look at the number of the laws reach 666. Ironic, isn't it? That's just between local, state laws, but also federal laws. Okay. What goes between the federal courts and that which is of the civil courts. I recommend looking into them. You'll find it amusing, but also enlightening. A few years ago, I got in, my brother and I, Brian Snelling, he and I got associated with a guy from the Church of Lucifer, for an example. He's supposedly the new head of that church. His name was Joe. What was his last name? If I remember correctly, it was Joe Cadanza, Cardona, something like that. Started with C. But anyways, this guy literally had nothing to back himself up with. And he literally lost his own followers. He was his deceitful ways were made manifest by Robert Fraze. And even further, he made the mistake of dragging me into it, which was a huge mistake because I do my own homework. And I'm not going to go at you in the normal routine like everybody else. I have my own methods of bringing you down. Just like Alistair Notch, who is a 30-year plus veteran of theistic Satanism. He has his own links, his own website, his own coven, and he was right about one thing. We live in a time where the pen is mightier than the sword. Words can create and words can destroy. Okay? And this is the thing that churches don't understand these days. But in the past, they did. You look at what they did, how they ended up going into a region, their methods and deployments, how they took control and started limiting before they started destroying other religions and dominating those regions. All but Africa. I have to say, not Africa, but Russia. That was a unique case, as I said in my last video. The way they just meshed together. paganism and Christianity. It was like, damn, especially in Slavic witchcraft traditions. That was a surprise and a shocker when I found that one out. But but yeah, you consider with Luciferians, when you read Michael W. Ford's work, look at the adversarial Bible. Okay, when they look at things, they look at it as masks, not physical beings. Okay, when they think Lucifer and Satan are just masks. One is dark, one is light. The same coin, just a different side. Okay, think heads and tails. So of the same coin, but two different depictions. Okay, so therefore, when they look at any given topic, it is a mask that they utilize. When you become a sorcerer, it is all about you and your enlightenment, your growth. Okay, don't get me wrong. I mean, I love Michael W. Ford's work. I really do. I'm not really tearing him down. I'm just sitting there telling you that's what they do. That's the way they look within his Bible. Now, the Church of Lucifer may be Luciferian in nature, but it has nothing to do with Michael W. Ford, as far as I can tell. Okay. And I want to make that very clear at this point. As far as I can tell, these two organizations are separate. Now, I do know that he has his own church, a Luciferian church. I do not know exactly where that's located, but it is there. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Most of these traditions have become watered down and corrupted through JCI workings. Again, even Satanism has Christian and Satanic Bible, has a Christian and Satanic Bible put forth by Jeremy Adam Capps. Okay? And what's ironic about that is I actually learned the Bible through his Bible. Literally, the JCI's Bible. By reading Jeremy Adam Capps' Bible, I actually learned how to defeat Christians, which was kind of off, which was kind of interesting because it made a lot of things, very public, not, very perspective. If when you look at it, because of the fact that it's like the veil gets pulled back. Now, in his case, he utilizes Christian doctrine to perceive his little philosophy, which in a way, without giving recommendation to the JCI, is in fact plagiarism. But still, it's a mixture, just like Christian witches. Ironic, isn't it? You're seeing the same exact corruption that's been in play for the better part of 1,000 years. Since the late Dark Ages, when they rose to power at the late portion of the Roman Empire, namely 550 CE, Christ era. Okay? The last Roman emperor not only rejuvenated the JCI, but gave them full authority to go and start limiting things and taking over. He actually opened up the door for them. But it wasn't until Spain got involved that the JCI really took control. You don't believe me? Do your own homework. And I do recommend do your own homework on that. Now, no, they don't. You go into Exodus, was it chapter 20? I want to say 23, verse 18. I know it's verse 18 something there within those first four chapters there in the 20s. I want to say it's chapter 23, verse 18. It says, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." Hmm. Even Hebrews 13:4 states how to keep the marriage bed holy, but also by staying away from certain things like sorceries, magics, mystics, adulterers, and everything of the mix. Go back into the Old Testament, you're going to see a huge amount of sorcery being done. The Book of Kings, for an example. King Saul goes under the cover of darkness and goes and sends out 3 men to find a seer. The Witch of Endor, a necromancer, a practitioner of the dark arts. Boom. He goes to her, and she reanimates the dead. Levy actually speaks of this, okay, in his work because he actually experienced it firsthand in England. And it scared him so bad, he left England and started working solely out of the Kabbalah and Hermeneutics, which is funny as all hell, but still. Now, even in the New Testament, Jesus, when in the book of Matthews, Nicodemus literally went underneath the cloak of darkness and met with Jesus Christ. So is that not associating with sorcery? Hmm. But yet, Genesis chapter 3, verse 22 says, "And the Lord God said, Here is man who has become like one of us." Go back to chapter 3, verse 5, and it says, yes, chapter 3, verse 22. Then you go back to verse 5 in chapter 3, and it explains exactly what happens and why their God forbade man to eat of the tree to begin with. Because he knew that if we did, we would become as gods, knowing the difference between good and evil. Whoops! Did I just spill the beans? My bad. But yet, out of all the Bible, it says that there's only one God. His name is Jehovah. Okay? And then they sit there and say, well, Jesus Christ is God. He is Lord. Really? All right, let's take a look at this for an example. Matthew chapter 1, verse 21. But this also goes down to which type of Bible that you have, because there's many different types of Bibles, many translated Bibles out there. Now, if you're going by the King James or the New King James, it would be chapter 1, verse 21, rather. And it says, "And a child shall be born of a virgin, and his name shall be Emmanuel." Okay, in Hebrew, Emmanuel means God with us. Okay, now if you drop down just a couple more verses to verse 24, it says the exact same thing, except for the name is different. Jesus. Okay, and in Hebrew, it means son of. Okay, son of. But then you go into Revelations chapter 1, verse 8, and it says, or verse 7, depending on the translation, again, it says, "I am the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last." All right. So if there's only one God, how do they explain then going into the book of Acts, okay, where talks about the three in one Godhood, or that of, say, Thessalonians, or First John chapter 5, verse 7, and then again in verse 8, talking between the heaven and the earth, where it's the Trinitarian viewpoint of the three in one Godhood: God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. Okay? Now, what's ironic about this is that it says the exact same thing in verse 8 of 1 John chapter 5, verse 8, except for now we're talking about it on earth. Okay. Now, what's ironic here is 3 is a number worth paying attention to. Because when we go into demonolatry, we have Lucifer, Beelzebub, and Astaroth. However, if you follow the Solomantic practices, which he was actually a Hebrew, the son of David, King David, who took over as king after Saul died, okay, who was a wise man that used magic, guess what? He used magic and he was willing to sacrifice a child, just like Abraham was going to sacrifice his own kid. He took wives from every corner of the earth, sent a soldier off to die on the battlefield so he can commit adultery with his wife, the guy's wife. Yes, I'm talking about Bathsheba. Okay. But Solomon, being the wise man, supposedly trapped the goetic demons in a magical ring. Okay. Now, what's ironic is that he uses the names of power, namely the Lord's name. Jesus Christ, be it or that of Jehovah. Allah is not one of them. I wonder why. But yet, Emmanuel, Jehovah, Jehovah Jireh, Yahweh, they're all right there. But it's in the Kabbalah and Hermeneutics. Very interesting and intriguing, isn't it? But yet, this guy, literally, throughout the entire workings of the clavicle of Solomon, literally is praising God. But in The Secrets of Solomon, put by Peterson, exchanges Astaroth in exchange with Alistar, the executioner. Interesting how that works, isn't it? Hey, Felix, Satanas. What's going on? It's been a little while. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on here that the church will not acknowledge. Like, say, how they've raped, burned, pillaged, stolen, violated all 10 commandments throughout the ages, including mass murder, genocide. Oh, yes, they've literally followed in their God's footsteps. But yet, they refuse to acknowledge the one name that is in the Bible. In fact, it's in all of their Bibles that literally tells you who the God of this world is. And that is Satan. And that's 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4. And they purposely utilize the small g, trying to demoralize him. Okay? But yet, I wonder who it was in the book of Job, chapter 1, that told their God that his people weren't living right for him. That was Satan. Ooh. But yet, Genesis 3:5 clearly says that there are other gods. Here is man who has become like one of us, meaning more than one God. So their claims that there's only one God, yeah, that's a bold-faced lie right there. Even the Jehovah Witnesses can't even tell you where anything is in the Bible. I spent 6 months with a Jehovah Witness. He brought in everybody he could. Yet nobody knew the Bible better than me. Well, maybe Crowley. You know, Aleister Crowley was one wicked dude, though. That fucker knew his Bible better than just about everybody. But anyways, the JCI basically is the biggest insect out there. They're bloodsuckers, nothing more. They're more into monetary gain and image than actually being there spiritually for the people. So you've got groups out there that are in it for the money. You have the people out there that are looking to commune with spirits, to learn from these spirits, these demons, these entities, be it demons, angels, the jinn, Ugan, Loa. It doesn't matter. Even Santa Morte. But yet, even in voodoo and hoodooism, Santeria, Palo Mayumbi, Quimbanda, all the way into Santa Morte. These are all African-based traditions that have been brought over through the slave trade, which ironically were done by Christians. Oh, well, there's another myth blown out of the water right there. But yet, these individuals that put out these works touch on this. They literally show how they can how they incorporated and evolved by utilizing Christian and Catholic scriptures, their way of life. Now, here's the kicker though. Those of us who have been around Christianity, there are two ways to become a minister that I've come across. There's the expensive way, where you go off to a Christian school, a monastery, and learn how to become a minister, how to pick and choose the scripture that you want to obey and ignore the rest. Or you can do the cheap way and learn from another minister. You can probably guess which one I chose. Now, if you chose the latter, then yes, I chose to learn from another minister. But I spent 7 years around Christians. 7 years. I even made a pact with an apostolic evangelist that later became a priest. He became the pastor of a church. Okay. Now, and he taught me the Bible in a lot of good ways. Now, things that allow you to turn it around on people and show them the error of their ways. And that basically came back to bite him in the ass because his teacher and a friend of his that are both bishops, well, let's just say I had them spitting mad in the back of a sanctuary. Oh, yes. And all I did was quote scripture. Kept a straight face, cool, calm, collected, just one right after the other. Judge not that ye not be judged. If you change anything in the book, the same shall be done out of the book of life. Ooh, that pissed him off so bad. Had him pitching a pom-pom meltdown in the back of a sanctuary. But yes, you can use the scripture in the form of defense. You can utilize it within an offensive message as well, just like I'm doing here, showing you that you can divert their attention, piss them off even, to the point where they leave you alone. Now, I've personally made a reputation where Christians see me as their boogeyman, their devil, their antichrist, or at least one of them. Their words, not mine. But it is interesting because of the fact that I had one Christian look at me and she said, I've never come across anyone like you. You're a devil worshiper, but yet every time I've come at you using scripture, you fired right back in the same manner, utilizing my scripture. It's the damnedest thing. And this took place over a 3 to 4 hour period in the parking lot of the Career Center. Now, what's ironic is that I gave this guy 3 years of my life, 3 years to become a minister. I ended up going down to Tucson, Arizona. Every time I went past a church on the city bus, I watched Santeria practitioners, Brujas and Brujo, sit there and do that whole cross thing while wearing pentacles of Santa Morte or of their patron goddesses, their Ugan. You go to Texas and you utilize the same method as Anton LaVey stated, just make yourself known. Your enemies will do the rest. Now, that part is true. That was so true that I had 3 counties rise up against me. I'm talking rumors flying back and forth. The chief of police asking questions. Literally. And all I did was fire back. Yeah, the only thing I sacrifice is a good rack of lamb, meaning the Lamb of God. Woo! Made the guy laugh though, and the guy did look like C.D. Parker out of Walker Texas Ranger season 1. That was pretty cool. Actually got a stitch out of it. But after 6 months of this, of just sitting back and letting them do what they had to do, I revealed their conduct to the Department of Justice, to the American Civil Liberties Union, to the media in Dallas, Texas. A cardinal rolled through 2 days, just a few days after I had left, and removed their bishop from the only Catholic church because he embarrassed the church. He bought a worthless property. I'm talking, it was so worthless that the sewer system needed to be replaced. The house itself had to be rebuilt because it was roach infested. It was basically a condemned property. And this guy just goes out and buys it just because he wants to evict me. And it's hilarious. This is the JCI in general. This is my personal experiences with them. As Beckel so colorfully put it just a little bit ago. Okay, and I'm going to scroll back up here because I know you guys have been talking. Yeah, where was it here? It was right in. You said, and I quote, fuck the JCI. Nothing good comes of the JCI. Flat out, nothing good. I've seen how people have gone into these churches broken and they've come out wanting to commit suicide. I've seen how there are subdivisions within the churches themselves. Everybody with their own view of what their faith should be like. I've seen how the elders of the church keep asking for more money, money for new churches, money to house and maintain emissaries, money for ambassadors, money to refurnish the church. I watched one day, they raised $22,000 within 25 minutes. $22,000. This is an apostolic church that is sitting on 10 grand. 10 grand. And they're begging their own parishioners for $2,200 of their own money. And the kicker is if you look at all the items that they purchased, $300, 500 max. Wow. They probably put out maybe $1,000 between the material and the labor. That was it. So the rest of it goes into the bank, is added to that 10 grand. So out of the $22,000, they spend probably 1,000 of that, which drops it down to 21,000. So that's 21,000 going into their bank account. Vatican City has their own police force. They have their own military, their own armed guards, security cameras. I watch some of these places, they have security systems. State of the art. I'm talking fingerprint scanning. I'm talking key code, security cameras, even those laser beam tripwires. Yeah, these are JCI paranoid churches. Between the Baptists who beat their children with belts, yeah, I've seen that too. I've seen how Pentecostals will sit there and accuse you up one side, down the other. I've seen Baptists, Southern Baptists, who will sit there and talk shit about you left and right. And then when they're proven wrong, oh, we've been buddies all along. No, we haven't. You're a dumbass, plain and simple. But I've also seen how you question something, and apostolics will just shun you. In the center of it, the Catholics spinning the tails on the donkey, the wheel of fortune, getting all this stuff going. But yet, when somebody needs food, actual food, oh, here's a Bible. Just what they did down in Haiti after that, their catastrophe by Mother Nature. A child begging for a sandwich, for something to eat, and they hand him a fucking Bible. Oh, here's the bread of Christ. No, nothing comes out of the JCI. Look at Islam. It was written by a guy by the name of Muhammad, built off a philosophy of peace. And yet, you have Al Qaeda, or had Al Qaeda, I should say, and now you have ISIS, using it as fanatics, waging war, a cleansing war. They call it a holy war. Where have we seen this before? Oh, right. The Knights of Templar. Wow, how original. Woo! Are you impressed? I'm impressed. Not. But you see, it is spiritual warfare. And you know what's funny is that when you're on the left-hand path, like say being a Satanist, they'll utilize their positions either in the government or, like, say, for an example, let's look at my son's mother, parents, for example. Number one, her mother sits on multiple boards as a counselor. Okay. Her father, well, before the regime change, I should say, from Democrat to Republic, He had an office one page above LePage, okay, the governor of this state that I live in currently. They use their power not only to have pediatrics make false claims, but then turned around, got CPS involved, who is still a thorn in our sides after 2 years of finding absolutely nothing. And yet they changed their story left and right, making it perjury and fraud, okay, which are federal charges. Not only are they supposed to protect children, but they purposely put the child, a newborn infant of 3 months, in danger. Hmm. Full medical workup of metallurgical scanning, the skeletal scanning, blood work, you name it. They did it. They put my son through this shit. This is the JCI at its best. I have them right now that I'm sitting on, not only with copies at numerous locations that have them on 7 to 8 counts of civil and federal law violations. And this is a federal building, okay? Federal agents of Child Protective Services doing this shit. The Department of Justice and the American Civil Liberties Union taking their own sweet time. And what's ironic is that the local branch of CPS last year went through an internal review because the police department warned them of an abusive parents, literally, repeatedly, out of fear for that child's life. Well, guess what? That child, she's dead at age 10 because they did nothing to prevent it. But yet it's okay for them to beat children with belts, with rulers, such as the Catholics do or the Baptists. And yet somebody who's got nothing against them, they'll sit there and hound and hound and hound, harass, bully, stalk. Oh, yeah, 7 to 8 counts. Yep. This is my personal experience with the JCI. My brother, Magus Sterling, he has his own stuff, and he runs the Defenders of Satan. Okay? He has his own experiences with the JCI. Let me just put it to you this way. His experiences are so dramatic that he doesn't talk about them. Has it made him paranoid? Yeah, I think so. But I think being a Satanist has actually helped him out a lot. It's given him a purpose, a direction in life. It's giving him strength, character, just like it has with me. But I found it interesting that you mentioned spiritual warfare. It is spiritual warfare. And the best spiritual warfare speakers that I have come across is Sumnist Redwood by the Majajira Cabal that you can find right on YouTube, right here on YouTube. Okay. Now I don't know if they did it on their in their group or their groups or their pages. I know they probably have them on their their Google page, but I know for a fact they're right here on YouTube. And I recommend them for you to actually go out and look at. It's called Spiritual Warfare Part 1, 2, and 3. After I sat there and listened through two of these, just two, it was like a light bulb came on in my head and said, son of a bitch, this is exactly what they're doing to my family right now. And I didn't even take even a thought that it could be spiritual. I knew it was physical. I knew it was mental and emotional trauma, financial loss, and everything else due to the fighting of these idiots, these insects. But I never stopped to think spiritual warfare. But the way he literally laid it out, I started thinking about the last 2 years. And there it is, right there, in a fucking nutshell. Exactly what I was going through, what my son's mother is going through, what our child has gone through. First, they attacked my son. Then they went after his mother. And since then, it has been all about me. All because I am not a Christian. Nor will I ever be a fucking Christian. I do not condone them. I do not support them. But I will teach you how to defend yourselves against them, like I have learned how to do, and like a few others have learned how to do. And that he is. My teacher happens to be Marcus. He has given me a lot to think about over the last year since I got into the cabal workings. And Sumnus Redwood is one of the I thought I had a lot of people thought I had a lot of knowledge. And I look at my videos, I'm Sumnus Redwood puts me to shame. Literally, he puts me to shame. And I've been at this 29 years. 29 years dedicated to the arts and practices. And I'm telling you, he even puts me to shame. I mean, this guy's so in tuned with the energies and the currents and the spiritual gnosis that he's literally running rings around me. It's like if I can be half the spiritual leader that he is, damn. And that's literally made apparent in the spiritual warfare videos that he did. Every time this man speaks, it's wisdom, literally wisdom, knowledge, experience. He's clearly spent a lot of time thinking about it. But he has put it out in such a way that backs up everything that he's talking about, but at the same time is speaking to countless others. So yes, Bekal, Ishtar, Istardi, Ishtar, Tintir. I apologize if I'm slaughtering your name there. You don't come across the name like yours very often. But I have to agree with you. Both Sumnus Redwood and Marcus are the top two being people that I would go to. These and that's one of the reasons why I've literally gone into necromancy through the Cabal system. It's a path that, as you put it, Sumnus Redwood, you know, because that's a path that he took through the Iron Throne. And just since I started doing this path, I've had a lot of people come to me and say how I've grown, how I've matured in the arts. I didn't even know there was a difference. I didn't even see it. I was so focused on the reading and the studying of the towers and the material at hand. But once I went back into my videos over the last year, yeah, even I could see it. So yeah, if others can see it, I guess that's a good thing. But you do have to be careful because of the fact that there are a lot of fakes out there. There are a lot of users. There's a lot of individuals who only want your money. There's a lot of individuals that want something from you. I've come across a few and they've made it a history of coming at me, even though I've debunked them time and time again. But they want to waste time, let them. That's the way I look at it. But here's the thing, you can always find the true practitioners by the work that they do because their work and their words align. And that's one of the things I've noticed about the Cabal system. The Cabal system of the Majajira Cabal, run by Ascended Grandmaster Sumnus Dreadwood, is one of those traditions that is very, very potent and very, very powerful, rich with the knowledge and wisdom of the ages. And they go back, what was it? I think it was the 13th, 14th century, I believe. I think it was like 1460 something, I think. I got to go back into the 1407, that was it. I knew it was 14 something. And thank you for that. So yeah, it was they've got a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom that they could share. And I think they have plans for that, but it's coming out slowly. A brother of mine recently gave me a PDF that he got from him because he thought it would benefit me, and it did. I didn't realize so much went into each tower that there was actually a ranking system. But you look at most groups, there is a ranking system, so why not in the Cabal, right? So, but yeah, it's interesting though. I've never come across anything as potent as the Cabal. So I went out and I bought all the books, broke it down, even applied. And come to think about it, that reminds me, I do got to go into their website again and apply for discipleship. Full. I haven't had the currency to do that because of the past 2 years. But now, thanks to Sumnus Dreadwood, yeah, that's true. It is definitely interesting. But because of my background, I don't take things at face value. I spent the last 2 months studying the Dralith, the different species of Dralith, such as the Dark Elven, the Spider Mother, just to name a couple. Just 2 months just on that, and going into the which ironically led me to the Tower of Stars through the Draconian path, which I'm not going to discuss there, especially here. But it's led me into a few of the towers, and it was kind of interesting because I want to see where it goes. But I've taken everything that I've seen and experienced, and I've gone into Google, I've gone into my books, gone into everything that's around me, looking for the truth, looking for the connection, looking for the sources and the references. And what's ironic, though, is the Dark Elven. I went through the Russian, Germanic, European, Saxon, the Gaelic systems, and I found references to them. There was so much information and linkage in the way they were viewed. The two that I was aware of, the light elves and the dark elves, through that of the Druidic or the Norse pantheon, I should say, like that of Thor and Odin and all them, getting into the nine realms. I was aware of those two species of elves. But through my studies, I discovered a third. So you got the white elves, the black elves, and the dark elves. And it was like, jeez. So many different things that are coming up. I mean, I even came across some rare scrolls, some writings that are in museums that had links to them and different references that led me into European-based roots, like Europe, where they were viewed as being evil or demons, even. Those of baneful magics, things that were vile, destructive, even. And what I found interesting about that was to see how they went from being a race of people of knowledge, wisdom, and magical communities into being separated into three groups, all with their own cultures, their own methods of deployment, and views of each one of them. From that of a wise teacher, a celestial being, to, say, for an example, a member of the Demerge, a demon, being vile and evil. And that led me back into demonolatry, which basically, when you get into the term daemon or daemon means protector or guardian. So, whereas angel literally stands for teacher, guide, spiritual leader, stuff like that. So, I mean, to see the two different things and getting into the material this way sheds a whole lot of new light. So, for those of you who want to evolve, for those of you who want to become more spiritual, more in tune with the currents and the energies, to better yourselves, I would recommend the Majajira Cabal and all of the books by Sumnus Redwood to you. And from what I understand, Marcus also wrote some things in these books as well, which explains a lot because I did pick up things that kind of reminded me of him. The way he speaks, the way he writes, even. So I do recommend that you go out and get these books, and actually, if you're serious about learning. And I do like their methods. So, but yeah, out of all the traditions that are out there, no matter what path, no matter what tradition, they all have, most of them, anyways, have been influenced by the JCI. So those ones there, I would basically just toss aside and stop practicing altogether. At least that's my opinion. Because if you really want to get into black magic, if you really want to get into the arts, you'll go out and actually study the material firsthand. Practice it, experiment with it. Find out for yourself what works and what doesn't. From alchemy to necromancy to herbalism to the very traditions themselves. But a lot of what humanity used to know, they don't know today. It's so watered down and corrupted that it's not even worth your time. I don't even pick up a lot of the grimoires that I have, such as the Grand Grimoire, the Grand Grimoire Red Dragon, the Constitution of Pope Honorius, the Clavicle of Solomon. Getting into these, even the demonolatry books. I don't even get into them anymore. Namely because of the fact that they're literally that watered down and corrupted. Well, not just that. When you get into the Dark Ages, between the 10th century and the 12th century, it was a real persecution of witches. That set the left hand path back quite a bit. But it wasn't until the 16th century that, and the witch's hammer that came around, that the church really took over and started hammering down not only on their enemies, but also on that of actual practitioners. It was more targeted towards the hierarchy. If you worked for the church and you worked for and you were loyal to the throne, you would be bypassed. But if you did it on your own, you were considered a heretic, you were a devil worshiper, and you were burned at the stake, hung, or or even drowned. And they had methods that explained everything so that it was damned if you do and damned if you don't, not even mentioning the torture that they put you through. So, I mean, you got to take those into consideration as well. But I mean, between the Iron Age, the Bronze Age, the Dark Ages, and the Burning Times, those real in the even the Holy Wars, those really fucked everybody over bad. And the only people that you can put that blame on is the church because they were the leaders of all these events. Their little foot soldiers were the ones that were bringing everything around. And that's very clear. Wherever the Knights of the Templar went, the Knights of Templar were European based. They were both pagans and Christians. Okay? But they were the protectors of the people. They worshipped Baphomet, the wealth giver and protector, the guardian of the underworld. Okay? Much like Cerberus, the three-headed dog, who was the protector of all of hell's treasures, their weaponry, their armory, and everything. Okay? The Inquisitions, that they still do. I can even vouch for that myself. Not just the police. There are, I can tell you there's a guy right now down in, what was it, Belarus? Let's see. There's one in There's one down in Louisiana. I do know that. There's one in Alabama. And there's a couple of them that actually do work for the church themselves. And their purpose is to go out and hunt practitioners. They claim it's those that do wrong to others. Like, say, if you put a curse on somebody, they would come at you. Kind of reminds you of the African witch doctor. What's ironic about that is the Boko or the Bokor, depending if it's Hoodooism or Voodoo. Black magicians particularly fear them because they're the only ones who supposedly can undo them, their magics. So, exactly, they get off scot free while everybody else is condemned. It's like, how does that work? Are you that eager to get into hell by yourselves, perhaps? So you're willing to send everybody off to heaven? Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Probably one to contemplate on. But for now, when you get into other traditions, other philosophies, you'll see the differences, but you'll see a lot of commonalities. A lot of things like the threefold law of return, which can be traced back to Gerald Gardner in the Gardnerian tradition back in 1974. I had one individual that claimed it went back to an ancient Arabic scroll. I asked her to show me proof. What is the name of the scroll? And I will go look it up. Would not and could not tell me. You claimed it. You claimed it exists. Where is it? Oh, you just got debunked and you made yourself available looking like an idiot. Boom. Falsified information, trying to water things down, trying to corrupt, misdirection. Yeah, karma definitely goes back towards these people, and they know it. In the United States alone, I found it interesting. Just over the last decade, the last 15 years or so, there have been 1,500 churches, chapels, and synagogues left vacant because they have zero ministers or zero congregation to minister to. Ironic, isn't it? And that's just here in America. I kind of wonder if we looked outside of America, how many more are actually sitting vacant? And yet they claim, oh, we're winning the war. It's kind of hard to win the war when you're the only ones fighting it. Just saying, it's kind of laughable. As you just stated, it's laughable. Your places, and according to The Art of Cognitive Warfare put forth by Alistair Notch, I found it interesting how many people are homeless, how many people are single mothers that are raising their children on the streets in homeless shelters, how many dollars ministers rake in, but also how many of these churches literally sit vacant. How many people? About 50, according to Alistair Notch, when this book came out, according to him, his study said that it was 54% of America are just Catholics alone. How fucked up is that? That means that 46% of America is the other minority, meaning of Christians. Okay? That's just Christianity, the JCI in general. But yet people only go based off the JCI. Why don't they do a study on how many people are Wiccan? How many people are Wicca? Say Palo, Santeria, Santa Morte, Quimbanda, Umbanda, Satanism, Druidism, Shaman. And I guarantee you, the world is gonna wake up and go, what the fuck have we been following? What have we been seeing? Basically, what we're being told is a lie. I saw a video just earlier tonight that said apparently Trump is getting ready to hand America over to ISIS, to an Islamic prince. Now, that's a bullshit lie right there. Even though we've seen the reports on the news stating that they're getting ready to make some kind of big move. Now, didn't they do the same thing before we invaded Iraq? Huh. After 9/11? Interesting. But it had something to do, from what this report said, it had something to do with how to prevent another attack like 9/11. Except for they didn't name 9/11. No, that would get America's panties in a twist. No, so they didn't use that, no. But they did utilize the term attack. How to prevent another catastrophe, such as the one that happened before. Hmm. But yet clearly stated, oh, Trump's going to hand us over to Islam. I had a friend of mine whose wife worked for the governor down in Missouri, a Catholic minister, the governor, and a spiritual leader of Islam were supposedly meeting to turn Missouri into an Islamic state. So to see that plus this report, I'd believe that but more than I would this report because of the fact there's no substance to it. There's no evidence to back it up. Hmm. None whatsoever, which tells me it is just a fear campaign. It is meant to keep you off balance, just like saying the devil is around the corner at every turn. Wow. Now, I wonder how much fear would just go out the window if people actually took a step back and went, huh, where's your evidence? Where's your proof? Oh, you have none? There's the door. Exactly. It's distractions. Nothing more, nothing less. Nothing more, nothing less. It's like every other day you're hitting, color orange or color red or whatever the fucking colors are that they have for the government's little terror codes. Who cares? The government does the government thing, people do the people thing. And the church is pulling their strings like a goddamn puppet master. Woo! Exactly. Where's the negative colors? Now, from what I understand, 7 colors. In the old days, 7 planets, 7 gods. Huh. Ironically, though, more colors have been added to the spectrum. Just like more planets have been added to the solar system. And now we're being told that certain foods are good for us, like chocolate or say, for an example, salads. But yet, in the very next sentence, oh, wait, we were wrong. It's actually bad for you to have too much of it. Uh, duh, that's common sense. If you don't have common sense to that knowing that eating too much sweets will clog up your kidneys and lower your kidney functions that could lead to kidney failure, diabetes, heart disease, obesity, even. Um, yeah, then you're stupid, plain and simple. It's like drinking too much soda is going to rot your teeth. Huh. So does an acid reflux. Yeah, that little acid reflux you get in your throat. What do you think happens when it spits up into your mouth while you're laying down trying to sleep? It gets on your molars, it gets in your other teeth, and it corrodes the enamel. Yep. Obviously, too much things can be bad. It's common sense. Just like religion, you let it get out of proportion, you give up your rights, you end up with the JCI running everything. But I wonder who's actually running the business aspects of that. Hmm. Could it be the Jewish? Or perhaps the Vatican itself? Or is that deceiving in itself? Because apparently the Illuminati and the Catholics are the same organization. Interesting fact. Look it up sometime. But for with that said, exactly, the Russell those individuals are an interesting breed. They're like the Masonics. So much history, delving into magics, but yet they're a secret society, just like the Skull and Bones, where the presidents come from. Interesting enough, Skull and Bones are used in black magic, rituals even, both human and animal alike. But for now, I think I'm going to end this here. Hope it's been enlightening, hope it's been educational, and I hope you go out and look at the sources. With that said, have a good night.